Welcome to this year's Trace Prize for Investigative Reporting. I'm Alexandra Rogge. We at the Trace Foundation are committed to supporting brave and tenacious reporters, often in high corruption and low rule of law countries. We know that this difficult work is key to uncovering corruption and financial misconduct. We're proud to recognize the fearless reporters who dig and persevere to bring these stories to light. With that, I'd like to turn this over to Diana Enriquez, the chair of our entirely independent panel of judges. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Diana Henriquez. I'm a retired New York Times financial writer and the author of a half dozen books on financial history. This is the 10th year I've led the judging for the Trace Prize. That's quite a milestone, and this work is one of the most satisfying and inspiring things I've done in my life as a journalist. Let me tell you a bit about how this judging process works. My experience as a journalist spans the American and European markets. My fellow judges, all brave and widely respected journalists and educators, work in Africa, the Americas, and Asia. They bring their own insights and experience to bear on the judging process. Our goal is to apply a truly global perspective to the very difficult work of sorting through the entries that come before us each year. Those entries flow in now from around the world, from talented freelancers and newsletters, from local and regional news websites and radio stations and video outlets, and from major publications, public interest researchers, and giant collaborative journalism organizations. The Trace Foundation does an initial screening for eligibility. And then early in the new year, the judges start going through dozens of excellent submissions to identify the most impressive work and create a short list of our individual favorites. After that, we convene for a virtual conference to compare our top choices, discuss their merits, and arrive at a unanimous decision on the winners. In the process, we educate each other about the nuances of local economies, the shifting nature of oligarchy and government conflicts in various parts of the world, and the resources and challenges affecting each entry. It is never, ever easy to move from our top 10 favorites to our top 2. But each year there has been work that rose enough above the general excellence to give us our winners. I hope both the outstanding winners this year and all those who sent in their work understand that this is a competition among some of the very best investigative journalists covering business corruption today. We must choose, of course, but we do so with the understanding that we are choosing from a universe of excellent work. Over the past decade, I have personally been gratified to see that our entries have displayed a steadily rising level of meticulous reporting, careful editing, vivid storytelling, and engaging presentation. These talents enhance the power of great stories and lend greater impact to the fight to expose corruption. It is a worthy fight, one that focuses on the ways private wealth and power can harm our communities, our societies, and our planet. But it is a fight that is growing harder and more dangerous as journalists everywhere face a widening range of authoritarian pressures and financial hardship. So I and my fellow judges want to express the deep gratitude and admiration we feel for all the work that came before us this year. It is brave, important, and more necessary than ever. Thank you.
We turn now to the banking bombshell causing shockwaves around the world, the so-called Panama Papers.
The Paradise Papers.
The Uber files.
The Pandora Papers.
The biggest leak of financial records in history.
Published by the International Consortium of Investigative Journalists.
For over 25 years, the nonprofit International Consortium of Investigative Journalists has brought together reporters from across the globe. Working with hundreds of media outlets on every continent, we use cutting-edge technology to analyze large data sets, and expose corruption and broken systems worldwide. Together, we've exposed some of the biggest stories of this century. Our projects have toppled world leaders, sparked protests, and fueled social change. Stories that rock the world.
I'm Fergus Shield, Managing Editor at the International Consortium of Investigative Journalists. We're honored tonight to receive the Trace Prize for Investigative Reporting, a wonderful acknowledgement of the power, purpose, and importance to transparency of our work. Shining a light in dark places with care, courage, and in collaboration has never mattered more. Caspian Cabals is a story of greed, corruption, and complicity. It reveals how powerful elites in Kazakhstan and Russia exploited a state-backed oil pipeline to enrich themselves while Western oil giants ignored red flags. Inflated contracts, insider deals, and opaque financial structures helped elites turn public resources into private fortunes. Fortunes that paid for luxury yachts, fine art, and opulent real estate. Meanwhile, Kazakhs in oil-producing regions have been displaced without meaningful compensation or forced to live in polluted environments that they believe are poisoning their children. This investigation brought together more than 60 journalists in 30 countries, including ICIJ's chief reporter, Sydney Friedberg, and our colleague, Nicole Sadek, who interviewed victims of environmental ruin in Kazakhstan. You'll hear from them directly in a moment, but first, here's a brief look inside ICIJ's investigation.
As Russia invaded Ukraine, Cyprus pledged to stand with its European allies. The government promised to clean up its financial services sector, which had served Moscow's interests for years. But a new investigation by the International Consortium of Investigative Journalists reveals a starkly different story. Leaked data from 6 Cyprus firms show how the nation shielded billions of dollars in assets from the threat of sanctions for cronies of Russian President Vladimir Putin.
Our economy has been linked for many years with Russian money.
ICIJ's investigation uncovers dozens of individuals and companies who've exploited Cyprus's lax rules and limited oversight. These include arms dealers and cyber espionage firms, an oil company controlled by Syria's authoritarian regime, an entity that made payments to European soccer agents that may have violated Premier League rules, and even a company allegedly used to pay the killer of Croatian journalist Ivo Pukanic.
Cyprus ran out of credibility. We need to react because we understand that money laundering is bad, that sanctions are right, and that we have a role to play in the global system to promote honest and efficient financing.
I'm Sydney Friedberg, the lead reporter on Caspian Cabals. This project began with a question I couldn't let go. How are powerful insiders turning public resources in Russia and Kazakhstan, its neighbor and former Soviet state, into private fortunes? At ICIJ, we were ready to find the answer, no matter what it took. We're an independent, donor-supported global newsroom built to follow the money across borders and uncover abuses of power that thrive in darkness. We found that Western oil companies had signed off on inflated budgets and no-bid contracts despite red flags and corruption concerns. Millions in improper payments helped secure their stake in the Caspian pipeline, a major oil route crossing Russia that has escaped Western sanctions. Some Western oil executives ceded operational control to Kremlin-linked figures, even as Vladimir Putin's global threat was growing. This is the kind of story ICIJ was built for: deep, cross-border, and urgent. To understand the real-world consequences, we called on our brave partners in Russia and Kazakhstan, and ICIJ reporter Nicole Sadek traveled to Kazakhstan. They got dissidents to talk and uncovered key documents in 2 of the most censored countries in the world. They knocked on doors, navigated unfamiliar terrain, and found the voices that helped bring this story to life. Here's what Nicole saw.
How did your trip go?
Not according to plan.
I had spent about 5 months in ICIJ's Washington, D.C. offices researching a community called Beryozivka in Kazakhstan. Beryozivka had been relocated after multiple members of the community had faced medical problems that they believed were due to emissions from the oil and gas field in their backyard. This was all part of the Caspian Cabals project. So when I got to Kazakhstan, my interpreter quit, multiple interviews fell through, and I ran out of cash. But thanks to the support and collaboration with our local media partner, Radio Free Europe, Radio Liberty, we were able to land a pretty powerful story. So we visited the community of Beryozivka, which is now abandoned, and it was a pretty eerie sight. There were houses that had been torn down, animal carcasses strewn everywhere, and it all felt very desolate. We also spoke to some community members who used to live in Beryozivka. We met one woman who told us about her granddaughter who had faced tons of medical problems, which she believed were due to the oil and gas emissions. But by the end of the interview, the overwhelming feeling I had was, wow, this woman had been waiting for someone to come and ask her to tell her story.
On behalf of everyone at ICIJ and all our partners, thank you for this honor and for your unwavering commitment to promoting transparency and accountability. At a time when journalism is under attack, authoritarianism is rising, and disinformation spreads faster than facts, the Trace Foundation's mission is crucial. You stand for truth, integrity, and the kind of work that protects democratic values. We shared this award with our global network of journalists, our partners, and the courageous people like Vera Voskoboy who trust us to tell their stories and refuse to stay silent in the face of corruption. We honor that courage the only way we know how, by confronting what others would rather ignore and continuing to do the work that democracy depends upon.
Hi everyone, my name is Cynthia Gishiri and I'm here on behalf of the entire team that worked on Fertile Deception, the expose on the sale of fake fertilizer in Kenya. We are overwhelmed with gratitude and joy on receiving the Trace Award. We don't take this for granted. Special thanks goes to the selection committee for according us this great honor. Thank you very much for seeing value in our work. We would also like to thank the entire Africa Uncensored team led by our CEO, John Allan Namu. We appreciate your support and your guidance and for holding our hands throughout the production and after the publication of Fertile Deception. We would also like to extend our gratitude to our friends and families. Thank you for covering us in your support, in your prayer, and even for bearing with us when our work schedules became demanding and crazy and also unorthodox, and even robbed time that we would have spent with you. This award goes to all of you. I understand the struggles of farmers when they want to access farm inputs such as fertilizer. This has been a decade-long problem under a corrupt system. I would like to dedicate this award to my grandmother and all other small-scale farmers in my country who, despite the challenges they face, they do their best to put food on our tables. I hope that through our work, we will be able to highlight issues facing the agriculture sector in our country and in Africa as a whole for the betterment of our society. During the production of Fertile Deception, I met tens of disenfranchised farmers who had bought this product with the hope that it was going to help their crop, but in turn, it brought them losses beyond losses. Farmers who had put their sweat and their resources onto this product, but they ended up getting nothing. A few days to the publication of Fertile Deception, my uncle was called by my employer because we needed to take measures to keep me safe. He was coming back from his farm, and when he came to my house, I showed him what this story was that was causing such a big fuss. And he was so annoyed. I saw the sadness on his face because he had just come from top dressing his maize crop using this product, thinking that maybe during the planting period, he did not use the proper application. And this made me really sad because it is a story that actually hit home. So I dedicate this award to my grandmother, a smallholder farmer, and all other small-scale farmers in my country who, despite being disenfranchised by governments in and governments out and corrupt systems, have continued to put food on our tables. Thank you very much, and I hope that we'll be able to put in more efforts through our reporting to make sure that one day agriculture will work for all of us. To everyone who watched our story and found it not only captivating, but a reason to call for reforms and good governance in my country, and even to reward our work as journalists from Africa Uncensored, we say Asante Sana and God bless you. I will leave you with a quote of British playwright and screenwriter Tom Stoppard, who said, and I quote, "I believe that if you want to change the world, journalism is your immediate short-term weapon." End of quote. This award, we hope, will inspire journalists not just here in Kenya, in Africa, but also across the world, that when we prioritize public interest journalism, we are going to change the world, even if it's in a small way. Thank you very much to the Trace community. To our audiences, Kenyans, and the people who support our work at Africa Uncensored, we say, Thegio muno, asante sana, thank you very much. This is indeed special to us. It is our sincere hope that through this award, we inspire our fellow journalists, not just in Kenya, but in Africa and across the world, that your pen and your voice matters, and it can change the world.
I'd like to start by saying how grateful I am to this year's jury and to Trace for this acknowledgement of my work. A work that I see as being part of a broader collective effort to defend good governance also in the context of climate action. I would also like to thank all the people and entities that made this investigation possible: the indigenous communities, Mongabe's global editor for Latin America, the colleagues who contributed reporting from various countries, and the Don Phillips reporting grant, which funded my trip to the Amazon. The investigation exposed a baseless financial scheme that promised communities in Peru, Bolivia, and Panama to turn 23.5 million acres of forest into natural equity. The findings empowered communities to reject the scheme and prompted action from international organizations, nonprofits, and two of the world's largest corporate sustainability initiatives. In the global race to net zero, unverified financial models are proliferating amid a blatant lack of regulations and due diligence on the part of commercial partners, authorities, nonprofits, and international bodies. Fraudulent ventures take an underappreciated toll. They fuel corruption, divide the communities that depend on forests and take care of these forests. They breed resentment towards governments, and they undermine the trust in what could be real solutions for people and the planet. The investigation involves entities from countries like Brazil, Argentina, Canada, and Switzerland. While the story explores a specific case, it illustrates a broader reality: the need for legal and due diligence frameworks to keep up with climate businesses that are global and digital in nature. The Trace Prize mentioned will help bring attention to the need for heightened scrutiny of sustainable finance initiatives. And of course, it's a great encouragement for me to continue this line of work despite of all the challenges. So thank you very much.
Hi everyone, my name is Justice Beidu and this is my colleague Philip Tay Agbovi. We are deeply grateful to Trace for the work that we did on our film Death and Mortality, the battle for West Africa's largest salt deposit. Philip.
This award is not just for us, but for the people, the communities that risk all that they have to allow us to document their struggles.
It's been a long journey. The first time that I went to Ada to follow up on this story, was in 2021. At the time, there was a lot of confusion, and community members and villagers were even scared to speak with people because of the tension that had surrounded this deposit. For them, this was something that was of very significant importance to them and dated back years, and they were keen on protecting their ancestral heritage against what they saw as state-sponsored brutalities that were intended to enforce a monopoly of the resource on which they had relied for years.
We continue to dedicate this award to journalists and all who continue to speak to power and looking justice for the less privileged.
This award will go a long way to motivate not just us, but several journalists in countries like Ghana, where it is always difficult to stand against power, to shine a light on some of these untold stories.
This honorable mention is a reminder that journalism is not a crime, it's a duty.